Hello and welcome to Star Citizen Addicts Anonymous. I am Nikki Batgirl D'Angelo, your host. Yes, it might be the night before Thanksgiving, but we are not just arrogant Americans here. We are a worldwide community that loves the game Star Citizen, and we support everything about it. So I am hoping this video reaches the masses around the world on Thursday and the rest of the world, the United States, on Friday. My opinion, my impression of the constellation has to be heard. Yeah, I said constellation. You think I'm going to buy some kind of weakly armored, boxy looking ship like the Corsair? Well, I did. The Corsair is gorgeous. I think it happens to be one of the most completely, amazingly, wonderfully created ships in the game, and that's where I'm going to take this video. The problem I see here is that with a 9-year development pathway, yeah, I'm giving 1 year off for them putting together that demo, the ships that we got early on are just not holding up to the ships that we get now. The Corsair is a gorgeous ship. It's an amazing ship, and it's a ship that a lot of us are really going to like and want to fly as our daily driver. Well, maybe some of you, not me. I'm waiting for my 600i to get reworked, but this is a ship that to me feels like sci-fi. It feels like something that you would see in like a Buck Rogers or I don't know, even Star Wars. It is very well put together in that it is compartmentalized. And that is something that I have been very openly critical of most of the ships in Star Citizen up until now. I think Drake gets it. I think Drake makes ships the way that we would make them in real life. Whether it's a Cutlass or a Caterpillar, a Buccaneer or a Cutlass, or a Corsair, or a Kraken. I think Drake really does build the best ships in Star Citizen today. And not because they're beautiful, they're not. Most of them have like an appeal to someone that's looking for something that's not so pretty, not so symmetrical, not so perfect. And that's because that's what most of us drive in real life. We're not buying McLarens, and we're not buying Corvettes, and we're not buying Ferraris or Lamborghinis. We're buying Fords, and we're buying Chryslers, and we're buying Chevys, and we're buying Dodges, in the US at least. And for the rest of the world, yeah, some of those ships in Star Citizen are gorgeous, but some of us just want the one that gets us from A to B. The Corsair is different, and the Corsair comes from a mindset that Drake is trying to move away from the image that only pirates purchase their ships. So what do? They thumb their nose at the known galaxy and call their newest ship the Corsair, which means pirate. Okay, so I'm going to leave the whole piracy thing behind. I'm going to talk about the beautiful work that CIG did in building this and truly building out a ship that's believable, spaces that are believable. About the only thing missing from this is the tons of insulation that would be against a hull to keep heat from leaking out of the ship and into space. Yes, when you look at the space shuttle or any spacecraft, the International Space Station, there's insulation everywhere. And why is that? Because every surface exposed to space in sunlight would be drawing in massive amounts of heat into the vessel, or pulling all the heat out of the vessel if it was dark. But Drake gets it. Drake makes beautiful ships. They make wonderful ships. But they just don't do it for me. I can sit here all day and gawk at how amazingly well detailed this is, and then be sad that other ships that I own that I love just don't have the same detail. And I think that's one of the biggest problems with such a long development pathway. You start to leave people behind. And it's no doubt that CIG sees a huge number of people that are investing their money in Drake ships. And that comes from the Cutlass being one of the most popular ships in the game, and the Caterpillar being the de facto cargo runner for such a long time. But I personally don't have that love for Drake ships. I like them. Now, don't get me wrong here. I don't say they're not good. I think they're amazing. They're just not for me. All of us drive different cars. All of us drive different color cars. We have different preferences, different likes and dislikes, different interiors. One might get leather, one might get cloth. But Drake gives that bare necessities for everything that you do. Now, I want to be an explorer. I want to go and seek out new worlds and new civilizations. And I don't know if I'd ever be able to do it in this ship, being in what essentially is a bigger coffin. I really need a bigger ship. And whether it is a Carrack or even that beautiful 600i that they're bringing us soon, or a Perseus or a Polaris, or even a Galaxy, I think my love of a ship that I want to own is elsewhere. But the Corsair nails it in every way, shape, and form. Not only is the interior of the Corsair amazingly well detailed, but the armament is second to none. 4 size 5 hardpoints, 2 size 4, 4 size 4 dual racks, and 2 manual and 1 remote turret, and the ability to carry either a small vehicle or medium-sized vehicle or 72 SCU of cargo. This ship is amazing. And with just a crew of 4, it's able to accomplish tasks that take other ships 6 or 10 people to do. I'm not in love, but I'm in like. I love the way that the Corsair looks in some ways. If you look at it from a top down, it's kind of boxy. From the back, it's kind of boxy. From the side, it's kind of boxy. But inside is a maze of amazingly well detailed spaces. Whether it's the huge cargo bay, the engineering deck, the airlock, the crew quarters, the turret deck, or the flight deck, CIG nailed it, even paying homage to the original Cutlass with the little fan on the dashboard. I am a fan. Mind you, that doesn't mean I'm going to run out and play this ship every day. But I think it works. I think it's good. Maybe the one failing of this ship is the low clearance underneath. And hear me out. I know what you're going to say. Do you have to be critical? You do. I think that it's very well done, but every ship has this one thing that might be better off if it was different. Take, for instance, the Nomad. What the hell were they thinking? Putting floating landing gear on that. Hovering above the ground so when you land on a building in Microtech, it blows off the building. That was idiotic. What were they thinking? In this situation, everything about the Corsair is great, except the landing gear. When you put this down on a surface, it's barely a couple of meters above the ground, which means if you land on a very uneven surface, there's going to be issues. But you know, there is one thing you'll never have an issue with the Corsair, and that's finding that perfect screenshot. There's just something about this ship. Whatever angle you try to capture a screenshot from just looks amazing. Yeah, I find a love of this ship building up inside of me, but after seeing the interior of the 600i, I don't think it's going to wrestle me away from it. But still, there's just something appealing about it. But I have to know. I have to see for myself. So I point myself to the mountains and decide to find a slightly uneven surface to land on. I didn't want to cook the books per se, but what I did want to do is just show you what you might get into. And it's just trying to make this ship fit so the ramp works. And that's going to be something that's going to be difficult at times. We have no idea what the surfaces of the moons and planets of Pyro are going to look like for real. We know what the different places that they showed us are like, but we don't know what the overall planets are like. And I'm sure you're going to find things to do in uneven terrain. And I think you're going to have an issue at times with this ship. I'm going to lay this down really slow because I'm still loving it, even though it sounds like I'm not. And I don't want to put any scratches on my brand new paint on this ship. But still, I want to get an idea. I want to see for myself what it's going to be like. And you see, I picked a slightly uneven terrain to land on just to see what it's like. So we're going to put it down and we're going to get out. Now we are on the side of a mountain over here, which isn't unheard of. I've landed on sides of mountains many times. This one over here is kind of just I guess you could call it the foothills of a mountain. So the incline isn't too steep at this point. So let's get out of our seat and get moving towards the back. So moving back to the cargo deck and pushing the big red button, well, not the big red button, but the white one, we get to walk out of the ship. And already you're going to have a little bit of an issue here. Now, it's not something they can't fix in the future, but this is a very, very, very shallow incline, and it gives us an idea of the best situation for a bad situation that you can have. Look at the clearance, look how low it is on this hill. And if you tell me this isn't going to happen that often, I want you to remember that this is an explorer. This is a ship that is meant to go out and find different places, different points of interest, to map the different worlds in uncharted areas of UEE space. And you are going to find at times that you have to land in these uneven areas. Now, folks, let me tell you about this. I want you to understand why I'm showing this. Because in every video, I have to show the good and the bad. And this was the bad. This was it. Now, we still don't know what effect armor is going to have on the different ships. It may come to pass that it has a huge amount of effect on the outcome of a battle, but currently it just doesn't even come into play. So when you take on this ship with another one per se, a constellation, well, the firepower of this ship is sure to win out. But say that constellation, which is more heavily armored, starts to take on this ship, which is more lightly armored, when armor matters, and you might have a different turnout than you expected. Taking this ship into combat did not net the results I expected. I expected to get into a furball, but the missiles took out the low-risk target that I was going for. I should have moved myself up a little bit in bounty hunting and taken out something that was more formidable, but I just wanted to get an idea. In flying the ship, a little bit of a spark ignited inside of me. I do like the Corsair. I do think it is absolutely 100% the best made ship in the game today. But I do feel that it does come with a few disadvantages. And I'm still going to be a lover of my Constellation, and I'm still going to be a lover of my 600i, which isn't even in the same class, I know, but that's just where I'm going to be. So without the 600i rework done, the Polaris in-game, the Perseus finished, or the Galaxy announced, I guess this is going to be partially a daily driver for me for some time. But as soon as my other ships come out, I'm sure I'll move over. But I will not regret 1 second, not one iota of time, not one nanosecond of the time I spent in this ship. And while it's not my cup of tea as a whole, it's definitely something that I can raise an eyebrow to. The Corsair is an amazing and beautiful ship, But instead of lighting a fire inside of me to get one of them, even though I do have one right now, what it's actually doing is lighting a fire underneath me to start pestering and start demanding that CIG lift up the standard of some of the other iconic vessels in my fleet to the standard of this vessel. CIG, where were you when you were building the Constellation? Where were you when you were building out the 600? Where were you when you were building out all of these other vessels and just putting items along the hull? Compartmentalization is what you should have been doing the whole time. The Corsair and the Cutter are exactly the way you should have been designing ships the whole time. Well, I don't want to get too angry right now because I'm still on a high. I think that CIG is having an epiphany, turning around the way that they design ships. If you like this video, please click the thumbs up button below. If you're a subscriber or are about ready to subscribe, be sure to not only click that bell-shaped icon, but to click on all so you get notified of all my upcoming videos. Remember, I have a Patreon over at patreon.com/Batgirl, and there and only there can you become a patron of the channel and help support my endeavor to be one of the best Star Citizen video content creators and news reporters in the business. And with that said, you all be safe out there, and I will talk to you soon.